Warning: the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
I did want to ask you before we move on.
Yeah.
What is your relationship like? What was your relationship like with your parents growing up versus how it is now?
Um, I would say so with my mother, it was kind of absent, although I've still like always loved and admired my mother. So anytime she did come home on leave, which was like once every 2 years, um, I wanted to like spend as much time as possible with her. But that also led to like a lot of disappointment in that regard, just with how things happened as a kid and all that stuff. And then, but with my dad, Um, it was interesting growing up. Like we started out like best friends. I was his little buddy and whatnot, and then he got remarried, and then that relationship kind of split up a little bit. And then when he became a police officer and all that stuff, um, he was a lot more irritable than I remember him. Like the dude was just kind of like high anxiety, you know, super irritable. You ask him a question like, "Hey, can I go hang out with my friends?" He'd be like, you know, essentially just swear at you and be like, "What? Like, oh, you want to hang out with your friends, whatever? Nope, you're babysitting your siblings. I'm taking a nap."
Mm.
And
Short
I'm like,
fuse,
"Oh,
basically.
short fuse." And I can't say the marriage at the time was really helping that either at all. Uh, he didn't really have much of a support system at home. I would say it was kind of like, oh, he's just making the money and bringing it home. But like it was a pretty much a thankless job, both as like being a husband, father, and of course, I think he probably got more satisfaction at work than he did like being home, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
Did you get to spend much time with your dad?
Later in high school, I did when he was going through the divorce and stuff like that. That's when I kind of saw my old dad come back, like how I remember him as a kid, like where he was actually like being silly and being goofy, and like we go do stuff and have fun together, like we just go out to eat, as father and son, stuff like that. Um, but now we're super close. That's the thing, is now we're super close. He calls me like every other day, just to chit chat. A lot of times he likes to vent a little bit too, like if things are going on and he's stressed out about something. And same thing, like if I got an issue going on, then at some point during the day, I'll probably call my dad and be like, yeah, this BS is happening or whatever, and I'm ticked off and
So the
stuff like that. And
relationship has been somewhat repaired, at least it sounds like.
yeah, no, it's been completely repaired for the most part, I would say. Like, you know, but we talk a lot, like pretty much all the time. And then with my mom, we're also kind of like, it's weird because I kind of grew up with my parents because they had
Mm.
me young. So I kind of got to see them
Mm.
go through the trials and errors of life. And I was
Yeah.
often there with them when things were happening.
How many
when,
did you have any did you have any siblings, or were you an only child?
no, I had six in total.
Did you spend time with them at all?
I did with on my dad's side because I was living with my dad most of my childhood. So, I learned how to change diapers. I learned how to give kids a bath, making sure you warm up the bottle, what to feed them, what not to feed them. Taught my little sister how to walk, essentially. So um,
Wow. So you
it
were
was it was
co-parent
very
almost.
interesting. Yeah, it was free babysitter. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's the official job title. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it does show. I'll say that is, people who, it's funny, like a lot of people who go into the military, were forced to grow up young. That doesn't mean that they're the oldest, but that means that they've probably gone through a lot that has forced them to go through a rough time. And sometimes, like, you kind of need direction because you've been trying to figure things. You've been, I guess you could say, a chicken with its head cut off for a while. You just need that direction of like, okay, what next? So I'm not surprised, given all of what you're saying, that you've gone through that. Yeah, I mean, of course you had to grow up that's with that situation. So with your mom, you said that, is the relationship with that any better, or has that been?
Yeah, no, I mean it's fine. I mean, like we went through our repentance period, I guess you could say,
Mm.
when I was living in Germany, right? Like I brought up things like, hey, like life hasn't been it hasn't been sunshine and rainbows since you left dad and I, you know, um, stuff like that. So we went through kind of like a repentance period and forgiveness period, and like talk things out and had long discussions, usually late at night. Yeah, and since then, I know what to expect out of my parents, right? Like a huge reason why I went to the military was, well, you know, first off, I didn't really care about school that much.
Mm.
I think like I was getting straight A's and like scoring in the 90th percentile for like standardized tests until about sixth grade, when I was just like tired of homework. Like had enough. I was like, I want to be outside. I sit in school for 8 hours a day, be with a bunch of people that I don't necessarily like, get told what to do. I'm like, when I'm home, I want to be home and do what I want.
Mm.
It's like working overtime at home,
Right.
bringing homework home, right?
What do you think was a lesson that you learned that you got out of that experience growing up with your parents? Do you think there was one? Have you ever thought about that?
Oh, there was many lessons learned, I would say. I would say a huge lesson was never get too comfortable. Always make yourself flexible and adaptive to the situation, because things happen, man. Random things happen that just can turn your life upside down one way or another.
Mm.
Even in adulthood right now, it's like I've had good things that just happen in life, and then I've had some bad things that happen too, um, that have happened. So I would say just kind of like, don't take life too seriously. You got to find the humor in it. It's like, oh, I know the world's burning around you, but you got to laugh at the way that one guy's screaming. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a fair point that at some point, I think that there's when you know you can't control something, you could either choose to look at the negatives or think about what the next move is going to be to get you out of that situation, right? Because like you could also end up in where a lot of people end up is like this circle where it's a negative thought process of, well, then I'm never going to be able to get out of this now, and I'm never going to be able to figure it out, and then you get stuck in that loop. So it's helpful, I think, to at least look at what the next move could be, but it's good that you're also able to acknowledge that, like, hey, we need to address with whether your mom or your dad this problem that we had or this thing that stuck with me that I don't think we resolved. I think a healthy balance of those things is good, which is, from what I hear, is pretty much what you've done, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I feel like I've done so. I feel like I have a really good relationship with pretty much all my family. Um, and yeah, and I continue those relationships to this day. I probably spend too much time on the phone because of it.
Like calling.
you know, yeah, like, people calling me, or I'll call
Mm.
people to like follow up with them and stuff like that. And, a lot of times you end up almost getting exhausted of talking to people, because a lot of times they come to you because they love and they trust you and stuff. So they'll come to you with their problems and ask you for your advice and ask you to
Mm.
analyze the situation, and like at the same time calm their worries and their woes, right?
Yeah. It's a good and a bad, because it's obviously people trust you enough to tell you what's going on, and I think like that's a great thing, but also there's also you have to take care of yourself too, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. So sometimes it's like, not going to pick up this call, but I'll give them a call tomorrow or something, like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.